Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Rotary Unplugged. I'm Craig Clark, one of the hosts, along with producer extraordinaire J.R. Muller. We welcome you to another episode of Getting to Know a Fellow Rotarian. And we've got a fun one today. Our COVID year president, if we can remember those years, John Hankins. Welcome, John. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing this morning, Craig?
Doing well, thank you. We've got a lot to unpack here. Now, if you're a follower of the podcast, you know we ask each of our guests for five unique things. Sometimes we get more, sometimes less. Sometimes we get some interesting things and maybe just some things. But today you did your homework. You gave us some good stuff that we're going to unpack, as well as, like I said, you being our president during the COVID year, although maybe we could say COVID years, you served 1 year there, but we'll get into that. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where do you work?
So, I grew up in East Grand Rapids. My parents were former teachers in East Grand Rapids. I'm one of three, the middle. So, I have an older brother, Chris, younger sister, Meg, who actually teaches elementary fourth grade in East Grand Rapids. My
Okay.
parents are retired now and they live just outside of East. And my wife, Katie, and our son, Charlie, who is soon to be 12, which is hard to believe. We live in South Holland. So picture like Lake Makatawa, maybe about middle of the way down the lake from downtown Holland.
Okay.
And we've been out here for about 5 years. And like myself, my wife, Katie, grew up in Grand Rapids as well.
Mhm.
And we've been married for a little over 13 years now. And my wife teaches, this is her 19th year teaching with Saugatuck Public Schools,
Oh, okay.
which was a big driver for us leaving Grand Rapids.
Yeah,
She now,
that.
she now has a 14-minute commute to Saugatuck. So she's a science teacher, and I work for Albion College. I'm one of four directors of Philanthropy. And so what that means is I'm essentially helping raise capital funds, raise scholarship funds for,
Mhm.
for students through alumni, both locally and nationally. So
Education really runs in your family. Have you ever done any teaching yourself?
I have not. And, it's funny because I was always kind of that B level student, both high school and I actually went to Albion as well.
Just
Um,
make sure I heard you. You said B as in boy, not D as in dog, correct?
B as in boy, yes.
Okay. All
I
right.
was kind of middle of the pack. And when I was done with high school and done with college, I was like, I can't wait to move on, right? And here I am
Yeah.
back in that environment. So who would have thought? But yeah, so I've never done any teaching per se, but really like working within the education field just because it's one of those few pillars to help with economic growth in
Yeah.
the community, it's just it's so critical. So I really enjoy working in the field.
And so Albion, again, looking at some of the unique things you shared, and if anybody has stood next to John, this won't be a surprise that you played basketball at Albion College.
I
In the
did.
NBA, did you play in the NBA as well? I didn't pick up on that.
No, I did not play in the NBA. In fact, I was barely good enough to start some games junior and senior year. So, but basketball was something that it's interesting. Today's kids, are starting so early with sports, and
Yeah.
I didn't really start picking up basketball till like seventh, eighth grade, and
Oh,
and growing up in West Michigan, I didn't really know, we didn't have any family that had gone to Albion. And so I was recruited to play basketball there. And that was how I learned more about the school. So
now help some of us who forget where Albion College is. What part of the state is that? Where's the
yeah,
campus?
so think 94 when you're going to Detroit, and think those two key communities, Battle Creek and Jackson.
Yeah.
It's in between the two. It's closer to Jackson by maybe 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
South Central Michigan.
South Central. All right. Hey, you had said in your unique things, you spent 3.5 weeks in Uganda in 2008. Tell us about that. What was that about?
Yeah. So when my first job out of college for 12 years was with Trillium Employment Services. So I've always worked in nonprofit work.
Mhm.
3/4 of my career has been more in fundraising. With Trillium, it was more community development work through employment and helping adults with developmental disabilities
Mm.
find and maintain employment. And our board in 2007 in Seattle approved 3 staff. I was one of 3 to go on a service learning trip to Uganda. And it was under the umbrella of Rotary International.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
our executive director, my boss, was a past president of a Rotary Club in Seattle. And she and one of her counterparts were familiar with this work that Rotary was doing, essentially a large scale community development project, right? So helping improve schools, clean water, micro enterprise, lending for small business owners, etc. And so we went out there for almost a month, the 3 of us, to learn about not just employment inclusion that we were doing in Seattle, but really try to understand holistically how inclusion and all these different factors around economic development and education come into play in the developing world,
Yeah.
which kind of grassroots, really looking at the simplicity of it all. And so that's where I learned about Rotary. I mean, I was already a Rotarian at that point with the West Seattle Rotary Club,
Okay.
and yeah, so that's what exposed me to how $100 can do a lot in the developing world.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? I spent a week and a half in Haiti about 10 years ago now with my church, and I thought I knew a lot about the country. Obviously, I'd done, research and followed the world events, but until you get into that world, that country, I mean, it's enlightening, right? Like, you probably still remember and kind of, even feel some of that maybe you experienced in Uganda. That's with you for life, isn't it?
It really is. Sometimes I share with donors through my work as well as friends and family that back in '09, before I met my wife, making the decision to come back to West Michigan, a big driving factor was just seeing individuals in Uganda like literally having nothing
Yeah.
and just working hard. The parents were working hard enough to feed the family. There was no discretionary income. And that drive and still being happy to some extent
Yeah.
with those relationships that I built, that was a driver for me. Like, look, I can give up a career that was going well. I can, sell my condo. And people back in Seattle were like, why are you going back? Let's remember, there was a recession. And
Yeah, 2008.
so coming back to Michigan and not having a job for 5 weeks, that was nothing to me. I was like, I can do this.
Oh, wow. That's a whole other podcast, isn't it? We could really go down that road. So we want to get to Rotary here, but I can't overlook this. You are learning guitar lessons. Do you have it with you right now? And can you play a song?
Oh, shoot.
Oh, rats. You don't have it.
I don't have it. That's downstairs in my glorified studio. But yeah, I'm learning. I learned how to play years ago through friends, and that was very basic, right? A few
Yeah.
songs. So now I'm learning music theory, and the instructor here in
Good for
town
you.
has been teaching forever. So that's really fun, so that I can have something to play around the campfire with family and friends, and actually know what I'm doing.
Well, and it sounds like you sing too. You also said you sang a song to your wife, Katie, at your wedding reception. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to sing that for us here at the conclusion of the podcast.
I don't know about that.
Hey, real quickly here before we pivot to your Rotary, we can't overlook a huge mentor and inspirational figure in your life that you mentioned. Your mom's dad, your grandfather, Francis Davis. Why so important in your life?
Well, he was someone, a couple of things. I mean, I was really close to him,
Hmm.
right? And he was very instrumental in helping our family when I was really young, like
Okay.
um, toddler to grade school age. And what I mean by that is he was very humble, and you would have never known unless you got to know his story that he designed the steering gear for the CJ7 Jeep, that is used today in all the Jeeps that you see. And
Mm.
he had that patent that he sold to the government for World War II when our government needed an amphibious vehicle to get through rivers and streams and stuff. And so he really helped early on, in different ways to support our family. And then that's something that kind of instilled me to really give back and not only serve others, but also work in the philanthropy industry.
Mm.
And so,
Wow.
when he was in his 90s, he came to Albion College and watched me play basketball. And he was a true gentleman, if you will. And yeah, so he had this saying that,
Yeah.
I'll read to you,
Sure.
uh, that is by a poet, Henry Longfellow. And this long poem, the last paragraph is something that I think about even to today, when things are either taking longer than I'd like them to,
Mm.
or really difficult to get through. And he says, and this is what my grandfather would remind me of throughout my time with him. Let us be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait.
Well
So
said.
yeah.
I love the learning to wait. Toughest part of our, excuse me, toughest part of our day, right? Waiting on just little things, big things, but that's very inspirational. So, well, thanks for sharing so much. And that's very personal. So we do appreciate you sharing that. But let's pivot a little bit. You talked about Seattle a few times. Is that where you first joined Rotary when you were in Seattle? And tell us,
Yeah.
why were you in Seattle?
So I moved out there after graduating from Albion, and really wanting to kind of start a life for myself,
Mm,
uh, being someone who was from the region here. And of course, back then in the mid 90s, there wasn't as much in the way of not just career opportunities, but the social life is so vastly different today, than it was back then.
mm,
Then there wasn't much happening on weekends, right? And so, as a young kid, I really wanted to see a different part of the world, and I love the outdoors. Our family camps a lot, and so being out in the Northwest was perfect.
mm,
And I got involved. I think a lot of people get involved with Rotary either through family that have demonstrated like what this looks like. I didn't have that, but a lot of people join Rotary because they're asked, right? The
mm,
power of asking somebody. And so, I was asked by my former boss, Trish Borden, who was the past president of the Auburn Rotary Club, about 40 minutes south of Seattle.
mm,
And she said, "You got to check this out." And I went to a couple different clubs because every club is so different,
mm.
and really tried to get a vibe of culturally, like where I see myself. And West Seattle was perfect for me. And I was in that club for 9 years, and just had a great experience there. And it helped grow my business quite a bit too, indirectly, in terms of referrals. And yeah, and then I transferred my membership to Grand Rapids when I moved back here.
Yeah, when did you move back? When did you join Rotary here?
February 2010.
Okay. What led you to Rotary Grand Rapids? Just you'd had familiarity with Seattle and wanted to kind of get connected in that way here?
Yeah, so a couple things, I knew right away, the professional network is so strong in
Yeah.
Rotary. And so, that was something that I needed when I got back to West Michigan, because everything was so new to me, and I had to kind of build my network. And so Rotary helped tremendously right away with that. And then also getting involved with service projects, and where I like to do stuff that interests me, like clean water. I got on the international, what we call it, World Community Service. I got on
Mhm.
that committee within the first 2 years, and then ended up chairing that committee for a couple of years, before joining the board with our club.
And then you were president of Rotary. Tell us a little bit about how did you become president? You were on the board and you just raised your hand and got yourself in the queue, or what's the process there?
Yeah, so it's I think, a consistent factor over the years, because every president is so different in terms of their leadership and their personality and their goals for the club. But what's consistent, I think, in our club and every Rotary club is that, the board is looking for candidates that are already active in the club.
Mhm.
Active meaning they're on a committee, sometimes more than one. They're just getting involved in making things happen, right? And they know enough people that there's people that are advocating for them. And so I was recommended, I'm guessing at some point, and then I was asked by past president Michael Seitzma. He called me up one day and said, would you be interested in serving as a president in the future? And then of course we have a cadence that's very intentional. Abnormally, in terms of most clubs don't go this
Yeah,
far back on the
really.
bench,
Yeah.
if you will. But what is it, 4 or 3 years in terms
Three, I
of,
believe. Yeah.
yeah, three, in terms of eventually being the president. And so those years of mentoring and training and going to trainings in the district really help prepare you for that. They prepare you for your year to some degree. So
But probably didn't prepare you for COVID.
no,
You
nothing compared to any of us for that. Yeah.
no training for COVID. Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit. When was your tenure when you were president? Can you remember the kind of the year, the date?
Yeah. So COVID happened, as we all recall, in February of 2020.
Hmm.
And the Rotary year, our fiscal year is
Hmm.
July to June, right? So I started July 1st of that calendar year of 2020 and ended June 30th of 2021. And so Neil Marchand was the president prior to me when it happened. And he was instrumental as far as coming up with some language that was helpful for our membership around, each week we were evaluating based on local, state, and national health protocols
Yeah.
on sizing of groups, getting information from our local university place where we are having our weekly meetings, how we could meet, when we could meet, could we meet. And so the messaging, we were constantly collaborating with our external partners, the board, our executive director, and we didn't always have an answer within 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
And so we were having to constantly, have really clear communication with our team around what are we sharing and how are we sharing it in terms of making sure that people aren't panicking, and that people feel included and a part of something. And so quickly, within my first 30 to 60 days, maybe 45 days, we were 100% virtual.
Yeah.
And I think I had, with weekly meetings, right? And then of course, there's some weeks you don't meet due to holidays, etc. I probably had 4 meetings in person. And
Yeah.
so all those virtual meetings, our data showed that with an in-person meeting under normal conditions, we were averaging 75 guests for a 200 membership club. And we retained, I would say, in terms of virtual, the Zoom meetings,
Mhm.
about 40 people were on those Zoom meetings every week, which is pretty impressive in terms of just
Yeah.
commitment and the drive that our members have. When, let's say, roughly 60%, maybe, or even higher, are working Rotarians. They're not
Yeah.
retired. And so it just showed that people wanted to be a part of something and maintain those friendships and hear what's going on. And yeah, it was still a great year.
Definitely a unique year. Were you kind of talking with other Rotary clubs around the nation, kind of best practices or any sort of ideas? Because I mean, let's face it, Zoom, for me anyway, I wasn't a regular user per se of that platform. So a lot of nuances and logistics, I imagine that was pretty overwhelming. I didn't know if Rotary had kind of provided a little guidance or everybody was kind of on their own.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely, through the district, we're getting information around
I see.
who was meeting, how are they meeting, and I think what really helped us is that we created a good toolkit around technology and how to use it. We even practiced it a couple times prior to meetings, and to some extent you're kind of on your own to
Yeah.
figure it out. But what was really neat, I would say maybe halfway through the year when we had a good flow with the technology and we were getting good response from our membership that it was working well, we put together, and it took about 2 months to put this together, an international joint meeting. We met with the Rotary Club of Stockholm, Sweden.
Wow.
And with their time change, they actually met with us with our normal noon meeting. It was their evening, weekly meeting. And so
Wow.
there was probably 120, 130 people on the call. And it was so awesome because we each gave short presentations around from different
Oh,
directors of the
neat.
club, how we were dealing with the pandemic, as well as specific projects that we're really passionate about and why people join Rotary and how it helps them with their businesses and their careers and stuff.
Yeah.
And hearing from them a lot, I would say more was common than different, you know, uh,
Mm.
in terms of how they run their clubs, how they were dealing with COVID. So it was so cool.
Yeah, people and experiences you otherwise wouldn't have, a little silver lining, I guess, if you can. But I feel too, I imagine people long for just some consistency, right? They're used to their club and their meetings, whether it's a meal or just sharing, just coming together. I'm sure people were looking forward to that. So it was probably a lot for you to kind of maintain that every week. Did you end your term still virtual or were you back in person? I can't remember the timeline.
The last two were in person, and
Last two.
and that was so wonderful. It was great.
Yeah, right. Like a reunion of sorts when all start kind of coming back in person.
It was, yeah, it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too because when you go to meetings, I think, especially when you're a new member, you're yearning for just connecting with someone and then seeing them
Mhm.
again and to sit with them and getting to know them. And you don't get that at like going to chambers where you're passing out business cards and trying to do business, and
A little more
it's
transactional.
more transactional. And so the transformational process can take time in a larger club. Like the club that I was at, the West Seattle club, was not even like half, I would say 60% smaller than what we have in Grand Rapids. So
Really?
the time for me to get to know that club was much faster.
Yeah.
And I was put in leadership positions pretty quickly within 2-3 years, where it took me a good 4 or 5 years to really get connected with our club. And you saw during the COVID year, people really connecting around life, right? We had
Yeah.
breakout chat rooms, and I would say 2 or 3 times people talked to me and whoever else was in that chat room about someone direct or indirect that had just passed away from COVID. And
Mm.
so that completely changed
Yeah.
the conversation, right? And you really got to know people exponentially. And so I just thought that was very unique to that time.
Powerful, really. I mean, it's a memory none of us will forget where we were and kind of what our season of life was and our interaction. I have 3 kids. They were on screens for school. Like we were all in our neck of the house trying to find a quiet moment or a well-lit area so we can be on screen most of the day. But
Right.
hey, let's talk about your current involvement in Rotary. What are you active in these days with Rotary?
So funny you should ask. I just applied yesterday for there's two charities foundation, our
Hmm.
foundation have two board positions that are open. And so I applied to hopefully serve in one of those two positions moving
Great.
forward. And so for me, with my role and the work that I do, it's realistic for me to probably attend one meeting a month, maybe 2 meetings. And so wanting to still stay connected to our club, our membership, and what's happening, and my experience with fundraising and supporting grants and things that
Mhm.
our charities foundation is doing, I know that I could help support the person on that board that's doing more of the heavy lifting when it comes to future fundraising in West Michigan with just strategy and
Sure.
ideas and opening some doors. And so if that materializes, that's kind of my goal right now in
All
terms of
right.
staying involved, right?
Good for you. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming between guitar and singing, you're going to join the music committee and lead us in songs, right?
Maybe my retirement years, yeah.
So what do you think? Rotary on a good trajectory? Things going well for our club and
Oh my
enjoying
gosh,
the diversity?
150%. Yeah. When I come and hear things like 3% increase in our membership, for years we were at kind of you know, a neutral, if
Yeah.
anything, net one, maybe 1%. And so and most clubs are dropping in membership, right?
Mm.
Nationally and worldwide. And so, I mean, while service arguably is down in terms of service clubs outside of Rotary too,
Yeah.
from what I read, that's not happening in West Michigan. And I'm really proud of the leadership and former leadership and the new members. We have so many great people that are growing businesses and people that are bringing in diverse perspectives.
Yeah.
I think that is critical.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I'm only a year in, and even in that time, I've seen a lot of new faces and, diversity that a club needs to survive, right? So I think that's very good.
Yep, that's
Well,
right.
John, thank you so much, not only for the time today, but your service to the club. What a unique experience you had. We could probably talk way more about, the COVID year and your service, but what a memory. And we appreciate all that you've done for the organization. So thanks again for sharing your time and of course, your talents and treasures with us. And I guess if you can bring your guitar to the next meeting, that would be good to kind of see what you can do with it.
Thank you so
So
much, Craig. I appreciate you doing this on behalf of our club,
yeah, it's fun.
as well as J.R. Mueller, who's running the technology. You guys have quite the gig you've put together. I've watched a number of these podcasts from our members, and this is a great avenue for getting to know our members.
Yeah, it's been a good time, that's for sure. So appreciate your time today. Definitely, yeah, definitely bring the guitar. All right. We need a big opening song or something. We can have you playing a
Okay.
tune or something. There you go. So
Yeah.
well, again, I appreciate your time. You can catch this podcast and all the podcasts at grrotary.org and click on the link at the top, unplugged, or you can just type it in your Apple podcast application, Grand Rapids Rotary Unplugged. You'll find us there as well. So appreciate your time. Have an awesome week. And I guess for you guys, I'll see you for lunch today.
Yep.
Hopefully.
All right, sounds good. Guys, have a great day.